Welcome back to the Peach Teach English podcast. I'm Frankie Mesmer, your host, and today I'm joined by
That's
Alexandre
correct.
from Brazil, and we're going to be talking about listening tips. We're going to share our best listening tips with you so that you can improve your listening skills for your professional and personal life. But first, Alexandre, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me, Frankie. My name is Alexandre. I'm an English teacher from São Paulo, Brazil, and I teach classes online, same way as Frankie, for students, especially in Latin America, corporate students in business environments.
Thank you, Alexandre. We're going to start by talking about why is listening important? Why do we need to have strong listening skills?
Well, listening as an innate skill is something that we tend to not pay much attention because it's natural. But we have to work on our listening skills because it helps us with our comprehension, but also with our pronunciation. When you listen, you have to listen for comprehension and at the same time listen for the understanding of other aspects such as phonetic and the grammar aspects of the listening activity. So it's important to understand the whole context, not only the understanding, but also the grammar points.
A lot of learners will say, "Oh, I have great listening skills, but my speaking skills are weak." But I think if your listening skills are really, really strong, that should also turn into your speaking skills as well. If you're able to understand it well, you should also be able to produce it. And so maybe you think your listening skills are strong and you're getting the main ideas, like 60%, but are you really getting those more subtle meanings of what people are communicating? The only way to really make sure that's happening is to practice your listening skills regularly to ensure that you're not getting just 60%. You're getting that like 95, 100% of what the speaker is communicating. We need to dedicate time to our listening. Some problems can be caused if we have poor listening skills. For example, let's say you're a manager or a team leader and your subordinates or your team is communicating a problem that they're having or something that they
Oh, that's
need or
pretty good.
want. And if your listening skills are only like 60 or 80%, you might be missing some key elements in order to serve your team efficiently and effectively in the way that you need to. And
I
as a
agree.
result, you start to create bad rapport with them. They might not come to you next time because, like, that guy never listens to me. That guy doesn't understand me. So, strong listening skills are vital to having good relationships in your professional and personal life.
Very good. I agree with you. And the consequences is a misunderstanding. So you don't reply back with the correct information. You're so on point with that. It's a problem, especially over the phone. So people need to ask for clarification and elaboration. So could you repeat that, please? Could you elaborate on that? Do you mind clarifying that? Giving more details. So it's not bad to ask for clarification and elaboration to avoid future problems that, especially in the workplace, in the corporate setting, can bring a lot of bad consequences.
Even if you think you understood 100%, make sure you understood is vital, right? That active
Sure.
listening, check
Yes.
up, make sure they agree that's what they wanted. And that also lets the speaker know, okay, this person understands me, they know what I want, they're actually listening to me. And again, that will build a stronger relationship. And I agree, on the phone it's harder. We're not getting the facial expressions, we don't see the mouth movement. Your skills need to be really strong.
One of the causes is because we become too comfortable, and listening is an activity. We cannot forget that. Open our ears the same way as our eyes. It's not embarrassing to ask for clarification and say, I didn't understand. Could you repeat that, please? Because at a meeting, it's the only opportunity you have. And after that, you will produce a report with, let's just say, some gaps and missing information, and it's not a good thing.
And when this is our native language, I think we're less embarrassed to ask for that clarification because we know it's not a language problem. It was just a comprehension problem. But I think sometimes we're more embarrassed when it's a language we're learning because we're like, what if they think my skills aren't good enough or something? But the worst thing you
Excellent
can
point.
do is pretend you understand and then go do something completely incorrectly. You wasted everyone's time. Maybe you lost a client. You have to be careful and be honest. Yeah.
Yes, with a client is more difficult. I would say that in both situations, be that with the boss or a client, it would be kind of intimidating. But in both situations, you show a level of respect for these two authorities. Let's just say a client is not an authority, but it has a level of authority in relation to how you are selling your services. So if you ask for clarification, if you show the elements of clarification, it shows a level of respect. I always like double checking information and say, are we clear? So in today's meeting, we agreed that we're going to implement the solution in 2 weeks' time, and the payments will begin processing on the 5th working day of the subsequent month of the implementation. Is that correct? Yes, everyone agrees. I'm the one who's going to confirm that information again to show the client that I understood the information, to make sure that this is correct. What do you guys think of that? It shows that you are aligned with the purpose, the goals that you have.
Yeah, and I'd certainly recommend doing that every time, even if you felt everything was clear. It's good to double check. Yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
example, to be a pilot, you have to have a fluent level of English or you will never be a pilot. And that's because you need to be able to understand everything in the air traffic control, and there needs to be no doubt of your understanding because people could die if you misunderstood something. And there
Yeah,
are
exactly.
stories in history of this. Basically, they told them, don't go to this place. And they understood, go to this place. And two airplanes crashed. And because of lack of strong listening skills, a lot of people died. Now, this is an extreme case,
Oh,
okay? But these are
yes, yes, yes.
problems that can be caused from poor listening skills. Maybe in a chemistry class, someone's life could be in danger if they don't understand the instructions correctly. Maybe you tell them, don't turn on the burner, but they hear, turn on the
Yeah,
burner, and boom, you have an
e- ex-
emergency.
yeah, exactly. Like in case of hydrogen gas or oxygen gas is a very explosive gas. We are taking this gas in a small quantity and in a jar. We keep a lid on the hydrogen gas. We should inform the student we should not catch fire, do not extinguish. If they light the match, it will produce a pop sound and the explosion. Yes, this is a problem. Like a different kind of gases catch fire. And before that experiment, we explained you cannot use the fire over here. So that's also one of the big problems.
Yes, exactly. We could cause even some life-threatening situations. Of course, that's extreme. You could just have some
Mm-hmm.
really big miscommunications that result in negative consequences. So it is important to build those listening skills, right? Now we are going to jump into the challenges. What challenges do you face when listening to English? Like what makes listening and understanding English difficult? So like the variety of pronunciation, maybe you lack the vocabulary so you don't understand the words. I think this is a big one. How are you going to understand something that you've never heard or seen before? Sometimes you can use context if it's obvious. And that's how we add vocabulary naturally into our brains, right? But sometimes it works. Sometimes you do need to get out that dictionary or translator to understand more clearly. What do you think, Alexandre?
I was going to comment that we have all the resources to listen to English, but not outside when we go on the streets. So I have the same problem in Brazil. I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that we don't have enough listening time with people. So one of the biggest problems is lack of practice.
I think that's totally it. Also, a lot of people like to use movies and series, but this stuff is scripted. So it's not the natural way people usually respond and talk. So I think if you want to really get that more natural English, you need to watch talk shows, interviews, maybe even reality shows. They're a little scripted, but less. And this is also like the language people are using today in 2025. You're going to hear the expressions that are popular today. You're going to hear how they merge those sounds together. I do think movies and series can be great, but personally, I don't think they're the best for improving your listening skills.
I was going to say the same thing. They get in the way because they're scripted and they are meant to sound cool. And sometimes we don't have to sound that way. We need to sound natural. It sounds a little too forced. I can't sound like Tony Stark. So I'm not going to copy the Marvel movies the way they speak because it's too cool, you know? It's not the way people speak in general.
Exactly. There's different accents. So you hear some people saying, "Oh, I can understand Americans, but I don't really understand British people," or vice versa. Well, the reason that is probably because you listen to a lot of Americans and you don't really listen to a lot of British people. If you were mainly listening to British people, you would understand them probably better than Americans. So if that's the problem, you need to make sure you're consuming content with different accents so that you can effectively understand people from all over the world. And there's also foreign accents as well. Sometimes people are just pronouncing things incorrectly, so it's hard to understand. And I think as a native speaker, it's easier to use that intuition and be like, this is what they're trying to say. But maybe when it's a language you've learned, you can still use that intuition, but it's a little more challenging to do that. This happened to me when this French guy was speaking Spanish. He had a strong accent, and all the native speakers were understanding him fine. But I had a lot of difficulty understanding his story. So, yeah, pronunciation and accent can be a big challenge. Do you think there's another one, Alexandre?
Well, speed is a big problem these days because we live our hectic lives and we end up delivering the messages without making sure that the other side will understand. So this is one of the problems. The way people deliver messages to us, it's like instant information, and sometimes they forget that we are from another country, that we need slow down. Especially, I hear a lot of American people. They speak really fast with Brazilians, and Brazilians, they are embarrassed to ask for clarification. They simply nod and say, okay, but they didn't get much. You mentioned something that was really interesting. You understand from context, right? From the general context, which I think is how communication works. We're never getting everything, not even in our own native language sometimes. We're not getting 100%. We are adapting naturally to the situation. That's why we need to be present, like you said, to be there in the situation.
Yeah, I agree. Even our native languages,
Even in
we
our
we
native,
might miss it. But maybe it's because we're not focusing
point.
on the person as much as we should be. We don't expect perfectionism, but I think when we're training our ear for listening, it is good to hyper focus and really try to understand all those minute details. That's also how we start to learn what are the nuanced small differences in the language. How else are you going to get there? It's a good point, Alexandre. Thank you for pointing that out. So, guys, we're going to move on to the next part, which we're going to share our strategies and tips. Like, what methods can we use to improve our listening skills? So, I'll let you go first, Alexandre. What's your first tip?
Well, my first tip is listening When I'm at home, I prefer talk shows. I prefer live conversations. These talk shows we have these days, they're very natural. They're long form. So you have an opportunity to see how people behave without a scripted kind of segment. But one of the tips that I would say is listen with attention. Intensive listening, which means making notes. So you will pay attention to what's the collocation, what was the phrasal verb, what was the idiomatic expression, because these are the things that you have to pay attention. I usually focus first on the verb. The verb is the first thing I pay attention to, and I note down the other things, expressions, especially numbers. Numbers, I note down everything to make sure I understand and ask for clarification.
Yes, I totally agree. Using those real life materials are so important. Actively listening to other people. You can actually learn a lot about grammar through listening, and you can learn phrases, not individual words. And then you learn how to use that structure correctly that you can use as speaking. So we have two types of skills, right? We have receptive skills, which are listening and reading. And these show us how the language is used. And then we have productive skills. That's us using the language, which is speaking and writing. First, we must listen and read before we can produce. Make sure you're regularly listening and reading.
It's not just about one word. I see a lot of videos on YouTube about how to talk. They give you words, they don't give you sentences. That's a mistake. You got to learn long form. So you must be able to practice 8 to 10 words, not just one. Because you get good with one word, what about the rest? The conversation is a lot of words. So you get good with paragraphs. I usually read and record myself with long content, not short content, because that forces me to keep going, to maintain the level, and I'm listening back to myself all the time. So Francis said something really important. It's not about one word, it's about sentences, expressions, groups of words. This is really important. Not just one word repeating.
When we start as beginners, what phrases do we learn? Good morning. How are you? How old are you? I'm 31 years old. And we teach it as the phrase, and the student learns it as the phrase. Yes? And so we should continue to do this as we become more advanced. And of course, we need to learn the meaning of the individual words. But what really helps it stick in our brain is the phrase together. I haven't studied Turkish in maybe a year, but all the things I learned as a phrase, I remember. Yeah. The individual vocabulary, it's gone. I gotta go back and study
That's
those
an
words
interesting
again.
listening. That's an interesting listening activity. You're taking up Turkish classes.
Yes, I
That's
started
interesting.
learning Turkish. I would like to be fluent in Turkish. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's so interesting. Beautiful.
Yes. Shahir would like to add something.
I completely agree with Alexandre and with you, Frankie, because language takes time to learn. As you mentioned, Alexandre, like talk show, to see how people are behaving, whether in a good way or in a silly way. I have to understand the words. If I don't know the meaning, what is it? So later I learn it by myself. I practice again and again. Like by listening to the news, like CNBC or BBC news about the business, for the economics, I learned everything about it. Like of focusing on GCC and Saudi Arabia, how other countries are gonna deal with the US for the business and other countries. By listening to podcast, podcast is also it's important to understand. It can help you to develop your listening skills and communications. Like communication has two types, as I already mentioned, written and oral. Written is like writing something. Oral means to speak or listen. Listen more how people are talking. So it can help you to improve your communication skills. Like when I go to trade shows, I see how people are interacting, right, in English or in Arabic. So more you practice, then you're good to go. Idiom and vocabulary and grammar, listening, speaking, reading, writing, and communication skills, they all are important for every languages.
Yeah, you have to know how to listen, speak, read, write if you really want to have a high level in a language. They're all closely connected. And actually, that's my biggest tip for any language learner is every week you should dedicate time to these four skills. If you only focus on listening, you're going to be weak in the
No,
other
no, no.
areas. Well, guys, I'm going to show you one demonstration here of one of my favorite listening activities. I used this during my Portuguese and French studies. This is crucial when we're beginners because our ear is just not familiar with the language yet and we lack the vocabulary. It's really hard to understand. So repetition is key. Now, there's two types of listening. There's listening for overall comprehension and there's listening for detail. If you're just listening for overall comprehension, you can do this more passively, multitasking, watching series, movies. But if you're practicing listening for detail, I recommend this strategy. So choose like a song, a podcast, a video, something maybe around 2 to 15 minutes, because you're going to need to repeat it. And if it's very long, you're going to get bored very fast. And the lower your level, the shorter I would recommend it because it will take you more time to understand. And you're going to listen 5 times. So let's say it's a 1-minute video. You're going to listen 1 time without subtitles. We're just practicing how much you can naturally understand. And then you're going to listen again, and you can turn on those subtitles or follow a transcript and see if your listening improved. The third time, you're going to keep those subtitles on, but you're going to pause the video and you're going to look for problems in understanding or new vocabulary and look up those definitions. Ask someone for help if you still don't understand, because sometimes it is like cultural slang and you need someone to help you out. Then you're going to listen again, still with those subtitles, but no pausing. And then the final time, you turn off those subtitles and see maybe the first time you only understood 50%, and maybe that 5th time you're understanding more like 80 or 100%, which means there was progress. And hopefully you also increased your vocabulary with this exercise. Let's do a demonstration of this real quick. Guys, I found this like 1-minute TED Talk, so it's not super long. The first time, guys, we're just going to listen, no subtitles. So here we go.
Wow, what an audience. But if I'm being honest, I don't care what you think of my talk. I don't. I care what the internet thinks of my talk. Because they're the ones who get it seen and get it shared. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. They're talking to you here, instead of talking to you, random person scrolling Facebook. Thanks for the click. You see, back in 2009, we all had these weird little things called attention spans. Yeah, they're gone. We killed them. They're dead. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched an 18-minute TED Talk. It's been years, literally years. So if you're giving a TED Talk, keep it quick. I'm doing mine in under a minute. I'm at 44 seconds right now. That means we got time for one final joke. Why are balloons so expensive? Inflation.
All right. So just curious, Alexandre, how much did you understand?
I think I got most of the end part. The beginning, there was a word that I didn't understand right when he pointed to the audience, before he mentioned about the attention span. I didn't get a word that he said in the beginning, but the rest I was able to understand. He speaks really fast.
You got like 99% then. Very good.
Maybe 98%.
And what about you, Juan? How much did you understand?
A little.
Like 20%? 50%?
50.
50? Okay. And Shahid?
I think I've understood just like Alexander did, no? But I understand that he was speaking very fast.
So you got 98%.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I got less than 98% if I imagine, but more than 90. So which means that I got most of it. So I would be comfortable knowing that I didn't get his quirks, because it was something about his personality. He was kind of quirky. There was something about him that he was agitated. So this helped with the difficulty understanding his gestures, his body talk. It was kind of, let's just say, frenzied. I don't know how to put it this way, but kind of hectic.
Which, Alexandre, is why I like podcasts, because they hyper focus on your listening, right? When we look at visuals, we do get the body language to help us understand, but you're still training your ear, and this is so important to good communication. But if you do really want to strengthen that listening skill, it is nice to turn off that camera sometimes and really focus on the listening aspect of the language. But it seems like Shahir and Alexandre, this was quite easy for you, which is why I would recommend maybe something more like 5 minutes, 15 minutes, so that you get more content in there to practice with. Let's go ahead, guys. This time we're going to turn on the subtitles. Okay. And let's see if your comprehension increases.
Wow, what an audience. But if I'm being honest, I don't care what you think of my talk. I don't. I care what the internet thinks of my talk. Because they're the ones who get it seen and get it shared. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. They're talking to you here instead of talking to you, random person scrolling Facebook. Thanks for the click. You see, back in 2009, we all had these weird little things called attention spans. Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. We killed them. They're dead. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched an 18-minute TED Talk. It's been years, literally years. So if you're giving a TED Talk, keep it quick. I'm doing mine in under a minute. I'm at 44 seconds right now. That means we got time for one final joke. Why are balloons so expensive? Inflation.
Very good. So Juan, did you understand more?
Yeah, teacher, more.
So how much now?
And now I think 80.
80%. So this is showing, Juan, there's like a 20 or 30% break that is actually listening comprehension problem, because you were able to see the words and understand, right? So we need to get that listening skill 20 to 30% stronger so that you can understand just when someone's talking to you. Now, Alexandre, Shahir, you were already in the 90%, so I imagine there
But I
wasn't
got
a huge
word.
increase. Yeah.
He made a blending with the internet because they use internet without the T sound. And believe me, I didn't get that blend in the beginning, the internet. The way he spoke, the internet. That's what, I didn't get that. Can you believe it?
And that's why
Random
this is
person on
so
the internet.
important, right? Because when we turn on those subtitles, we're getting to see how they're blending and merging those sounds together.
Because of the blending, he spoke so fast and he suppressed the letter T, internet, like many Americans say, inner, not internet. But of course, even Europeans would not say internet. They say internet, but not like Americans would say.
The word internet. This is something that you just got to train your ear more to these type of merging sounds. Let's see what happened with that blending there. Let's go.
Wow, what an audience. But if I'm being honest, I don't care what you think of my.
Okay, so you can pause, look for any new vocabulary. Do we have new vocabulary here, guys?
I don't remember in this moment. Care.
Care. So this is why it's important to learn phrases, because this care is in the phrase. I don't care. And actually, guys, I don't care what you think. This is a very common phrase. I don't care what you think. So this is what you can learn, Juan. I don't care what you think. And what we're saying here is your opinion doesn't matter to me, okay? No me importa qué piensas. I don't care what you think. The key, guys, is write this down so you can review it later.
I care what the internet thinks of my talk.
Okay, now this one is good because now it's not I don't care, but it's still the same kind of meaning. It's important to me. I care what the internet thinks of my talk.
Because they're the ones who get it seen and get it shared. And
now we said we were going to look at internet. I care what the internet thinks. Let's listen to how we said it.
I care what the internet thinks.
I realize now what happened. It's because of the R's and the T's. because he's American. I care what the internet thinks of my talk. Now it's clear as water, but the first time I didn't get it. And the sentence before, if you don't mind going back to the previous sentence, you did something interesting in your voice. Get to the sentence, I don't care what people think of my talk. The first time you said something like, I don't care. I think you're getting to the Southern kind of accent, I think. Is it possible that you naturally said it in a different way?
Yeah, we don't always say don't strong, right? I don't care.
I don't care. I don't care. You said something like a oink, I don't care. And then I don't. Very good.
Yeah,
so
you can
sorry
do it
about
with the
that,
face.
but
I don't care.
But these two sentences are very important. And I usually have more problem in the beginning. Then my ears get accustomed with the speaker, and then I listen, I understand everything. But the first sentences are usually the hardest when I don't know the speaker.
Yeah, and your brain needs to maybe just get in that English mode for a second. For example, if I'm with a student and they don't know a word, they say it to me in Spanish, but the first time they say it, I didn't catch it because my mind wasn't in that space. Yeah, I need them to repeat it again, and then I get it. But your brain kind of needs to get set up for it. I understand.
He said that he doesn't care about what people think of his song, but only the internet, that social media thinks of it. Yeah.
He's sending a message here, right? He's really just trying to start a discussion. You know, he didn't really give a strong opinion here. That's the interesting thing about this video. Should you be speaking more to the internet, or should you be speaking more to your audience? Let's go ahead and continue here.
Get it shared. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. Instead of talking to you, random.
Right. There might be some new vocabulary here. We're getting more into intermediate words. Any new vocabulary here?
Random person. Yeah, random person means a stranger, means an unknown person who you don't know, like from Facebook.
Exactly. It's just some random person, any person. And Juan, do you have a question here about vocabulary?
Instead.
Instead? Okay. This is more of a connector, so it is harder to describe. Yeah. So, Juan, let's say I don't want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to Burger King instead. So it's another option. I think you would translate it in vez de. That's the translation, instead of. And scrolling is just doing this on your phone. Scroll.
Yeah.
Person scrolling Facebook. Thanks for the click. You see, back in 2009, we all had these weird little things called...
Okay, any questions here?
Weird.
Weird.
Attention spans.
So weird, Juan, is something strange, rare. Yeah. Extraño. Okay, weird. And attention span, Shahir, is your ability to focus, to keep your attention on something. Because of short videos, our attention spans are not very good today. Luckily, you guys have great attention spans. We're having a very long talk today. You guys are doing a great job.
But you said something interesting, attention span these days. It happened twice during our conversation. Our minds are wandering all the time. And even if you try to focus, we cannot focus anymore. Because I think of so much stimuli we get from outside all the time. I don't recognize myself these days than I was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, I could sit at a bench in a square and read a book. Now, every paragraph I read, I get distracted with the dog, with the car, with the plane. It's a normal thing, but it's something that we're gonna have to pay more attention these days. Focus. So I just wanted to point to one thing. Listening is an activity. Even though it's a receptive, you have to make it active, because otherwise we get too much distractions.
And you're right, Alexandre, because you could watch a whole movie in English and you're practicing your listening, but are you actually walking away learning something that day? That's the question.
Very good.
And you can, you know, but you have to be active in that, or it's just a really long process. I find myself doing this when I want like a quick answer for a solution, something I'm researching. I want it now. But sometimes you got to watch that 15-minute video to understand. But I want it in 2 minutes. And it's a big problem today. I notice it in myself too. So let's continue.
Attention spans. Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. We killed them. They're dead. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched an 18-minute TED Talk. It's been years.
What's your question, Juan?
Literally years.
Literally. Literally. It's a little hard to pronounce, yeah. Literally.
Okay.
Say like the lira, the currency in Italy. I learned it practicing the Italian lira. So I would say all the time the Italian lira, literally.
Literally.
And then I
Literally.
would say little Italy, little Italy, little Italy, little Italy. Italian lira, little Italy, literally.
Okay.
Talk. Keep it quick. I'm doing mine in under a minute. I'm at 44 seconds right now. That means we got time for one final joke.
Any questions here?
Got time.
It's like have.
Got time.
Have got means have. It's another way to say have. I've got 2 cats. I've got a car. You can say, I have 2 cats. I have a car. It's just a variation of have.
Joke. Why are balloons so expensive? Inflation.
There we go. So that was round 3. That's what you need to do. In your own personal time, you can see when you're understanding, when you're not. Pause is necessary. Write down that new vocabulary and make sure you really understand every detail. And now let's listen again with the subtitles.
Wow. What an audience. But if I'm being honest, I don't care what you think of my talk. I don't. I care what the internet thinks of my talk. Because they're the ones who get it seen and get it shared. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. They're talking to you here instead of talking to you, random person scrolling Facebook. Thanks for the click. You see, back in 2009, we all had these weird little things called attention spans. Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. We killed them. They're dead. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched an 18-minute TED Talk. It's been years. Literally years. So if you're giving a TED Talk, keep it quick. I'm doing mine in under a minute. I'm at 44 seconds right now. That means we got time for one final joke. Why are balloons so expensive? Inflation.
Perfect. So, Juan, how much did you understand that time?
In this moment, I think the 85%.
85%. Okay. Nice. So we
With some
went from 50
subtitles.
to 85. Wow, that's so good. A big increase. Yeah.
Can I ask a question to Juan?
Yeah, go ahead.
The words that Francis clarified for you, the word you had a problem with, one of the words was instead of, and another word was have got that you didn't get. Was it easy for you to understand now after Francis explained to you?
And no, it was easy.
So now clearing up that vocabulary makes it easier for you to understand. That's why when we turn on those subtitles, we realize what was a vocabulary problem and what was a listening problem. And that's very
Listening.
important to understand.
Alex, I think some of the main problems that we students often encounter with learning English have to do with letter sounds. Some languages do not have the same letters as English. I think another problem that we students have is making the sounds of the letters that exist in English. In some language, the letter V is pronounced as V, other sound. In other language, the letter R and the letter L are problematic because the student has never learned the sound of the letter L because it does not exist in this native language. There are some things we can do to improve. Listen to podcasts and maybe watch television.
Well, really, there's so many options out there, but anything that requires listening, it could be something on the TV, it could be a podcast, music.
I was talking to Francis before the class, before the workshop here, and I told her that I have a problem understanding a word that begins with the same letters that I had the problem listening today. Interesting. I say interesting instead of interesting. I had the same problem with interesting and the internet. Look at that. It's the same problem. So it's like a language vice. It's something that I have problems listening with, this combination. So I must always pay attention to the letter N. When Americans suppress the T that the British don't, because the British don't suppress this T, and Americans use a lot of R instead of the T, it's easier for me. So when I prefer the R American than the T British, but the N is a problem. So it was good today because I could understand one of my listening difficulties is the letter N.
Now you know you can practice that. And I think I recommended this once. Youglish.com, you can put in those N words and listen to people and see
Great.
how they're merging those sounds together. Well, guys, we're going to do the final step here. Number 5 is when you listen, no more subtitles. So let me turn those off. And the final time, let's see just purely listening if we have improved. So here we go.
Wow, what an audience. But if I'm being honest, I don't care what you think of my talk. I don't. I care what the internet thinks of my talk. Because they're the ones who get it seen and get it shared. And I think that's where most people get it wrong. They're talking to you here, instead of talking to you, random person scrolling Facebook. Thanks for the click. You see, back in 2009, we all had these weird little things called attention spans. Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. We killed them. They're dead. I'm trying to think of the last time I watched an 18-minute TED Talk. It's been years, literally years. So if you're giving a TED Talk, keep it quick. I'm doing mine in under a minute. I'm at 44 seconds right now. That means we got time for one final joke. Why are balloons so expensive? Inflation.
Okay, good. So Juan, how much did you understand?
75%.
75%. So that shows that still getting to see those subtitles are helping you, which is normal. And that's why repetition's so important, right? We need to keep training our ear to the pronunciation.
I have to go now, but I would like to thank you for this opportunity. Also thank the participants for this wonderful interaction we had today. And it's a great opportunity to speak English speaking non-natives, except for Frankie. We're all non-natives here. I feel comfortable speaking to my counterparts who are not native speakers too.
Yes, and thank you for joining us, Alexandre.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you guys again. Have a good one.
We are going to finish here. Do you have any final questions for me before we go?
Yeah, what is your recommendation for understand, listen me, and speak?
About speaking. What's my recommendation for speaking fluently? You know, Juan, today I read a post on LinkedIn and it was about having the tortoise mindset and the hare mindset. What is this? Okay. Tortoise is a word for a really big turtle, and a hare is a word for a rabbit. And maybe you know this story, the turtle and the rabbit, the tortoise and the hare, okay? And they're racing, yeah? And the hare is going really fast and the turtle's going slow. And we have an expression in English, slow and steady wins the race. And basically the hare's going fast, 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 and he gets tired and he can't run. But the turtle went at a good pace. Yeah. And in the end, the turtle won the race. The tortoise won the race, not the rabbit, not the hare. Okay. And my key to you in terms of fluency is be patient and never give up. With each step, you're getting better. Every day, you're learning new vocabulary. You're increasing your listening skills. You're improving your grammar. And each of these steps, every day, you're getting closer to that finish line, which is fluency. The difference, though, with language learning, my opinion, there's no finish line. This is a life journey. If you want to speak a language, this is something you're going to practice for the rest of your life. So the key is be patient, be consistent, and never give up. And I promise you will be fluent, Juan.
Thank you, teacher.
Now, if we're looking at more practical strategies, right? Because these are tips for your mindset. But to really be fluent, you need to consume content in English that is real English. If you're just using materials that are only for the learner, when you hear a real person speak, you have no idea what they're saying to you, right? So that's why I would recommend doing what we just did. Pick a 1 minute, 2 minute video, repeat it, try to look for those new expressions, write them down. The key is also review. But really, to reach fluency, it's about studying a little bit every day. Try to grow your vocabulary every day. Learn something new every day. And if you want to be fluent, it's practicing that speaking. Have a language partner, have a teacher you can talk to so that you're using that every week. But you got to be consistent. That's the most important, consistency. Do we have another question?
No, teacher, thank you.
Of
Thank
course. Guys, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Our next event is a conversation club, right? This is for my students and paid subscribers only. We're going to have a conversation about leadership, and that will be on Thursday, January 23rd, 6:30 p.m. Bogota, Lima time zone. So if you want to join us, you can just pay $8 a month and you can come to all of the conversation clubs. So guys, have a good day. Bye.